Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Elizabeth, the volunteer coordinator with Moms Clean Air Force. And I'm so glad you can join us today for our climate coffee break, our shorter version of a focused conversations designed to fit a very busy schedule while still digging into some timely issues. Before we begin, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. We'll keep everyone muted to minimize any background noise, but we invite you to use the chat throughout the conversation to ask questions. First, please share your name, where you are joining from. It's always nice to see where folks are from in our community and who have gathered with us today for our coffee break. I'm Elizabeth, like I said, our host. I am from Michigan, and I'm so happy to be with you here today. Secondly, these sessions are recorded for educational purposes. We do edit out audience questions in the final version. This keeps it safe in a supportive space, and we hope that you'll ask questions throughout the day to our special guests. Today's conversation is part of our Moms and Marys series, where we connect the community voices with local leadership and talk about real world climate public health decisions. And we also want to introduce my colleague Sam. She is joining us behind the scenes. Sam will be helping populate the chat throughout this entire conversation and with helpful resources, petitions, fact sheets. She will help me monitor the questions at the end of this. So let's set up the conversation. Today is about advanced recycling. That's the so-called solution to our plastic waste crisis that is being promoted by the American Chemistry Council, a plastics industry lobbying group to state legislatures, to Congress, and the American public. It sounds too good to be true because it is. It is marketed as advanced recycling, but is neither advanced nor truly recycling. In reality, it often involves burning plastic, turning this plastic problem into a hazardous public health issue, creating a toxic pollution of hazardous waste in the process. We are hearing more and more from communities from advanced recycling, and we are asking now about what the dangers are, and here are some questions we are asking folks. What do these projects actually mean for air quality? What should local leaders be asking before decisions are made? And what can we learn from folks that are fighting back for our children's health and future? And that's exactly what we'll explore today. And I'm so grateful to be joined by Rachel and Amanda, two of my amazing colleagues who bring deep experience to this work with communities navigating these projects. So I'm going to start us off. From your perspective, what are the biggest myths and misunderstandings that you are seeing right now in advanced recycling? And Amanda, would you like to take this first?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I am Amanda, Ohio Field Organizer for Moms Clean Air Force, and I am so excited you asked that question because there are so many myths and just like misinformation about, really plastic and the idea that plastic can be recycled. So I'm not sure if many of you knew this, but we actually only recycle about 5% of plastics in the United States. And so what happens with the rest? The rest, 95%, ends up as litter in our neighborhoods and parks and schools. And then a lot of it's sent to the landfill and is incinerated. So the whole idea that you can recycle plastic is really misleading at best and probably, really ultimately a deceptive kind of myth about what plastic is and the ability to recycle is. So that's kind of the number one myth because we've heard it for so long. And so, there's just a lot of plastics just cannot be recycled, including plastic bags. So those bins you see at grocery stores or your big box stores that are collecting plastic bags. Unfortunately, those often, end up in landfills because those bags really, the reality is they gum up the recycling centers and they're just not able to be recycled at all. So that is a huge myth. And then just even, the idea that advanced recycling is an eco-friendly practice. That's very misleading. There's a lot of greenwashing going on. And so, yeah, I'm happy you asked that. You have to set the record straight.
And don't you think too, sometimes when they promote these at advanced recycling, it's really a distraction from our plastic problem itself. I mean, it seems like it is chasing a solution to a problem, but creating a bigger problem in that chase. And I was wondering, my next question is actually for Rachel. I'm wondering if there's experiences that you've had where you needed to help a community understand the potential health or air quality issues and impacts that may happen in communities, spreading this misinformation and make it seem like it's not really an issue.
Yes, definitely. So, I mean, like Amanda was saying, first of all, it's just important to get out there and dispel these myths, right? And so often, industry comes in and presents a project in a way that it sounds like it could be a good thing, that it's recycling. Well, it's not. And so often, once the community understands the reality, no one wants it. So first of all, just dispelling those basic myths, explaining that plastics are made by combining fossil fuels and thousands of toxic chemicals. So by incinerating them, you're actually going to be putting particulate matter, climate warming gases, hazardous chemicals all into the air. And exposure to this pollution increases the risk of cancer, birth defects, reproductive system damage, developmental issues, cardiovascular and respiratory problems, hormonal irregularities, and neurological problems. So, again, once communities understand what is really going to be happening, that this is not a green process, then it's not at all a popular proposition for the community. And then, in order to help, once some people understand that, and we want to continue to educate the community and elected officials, we've done that in a variety of ways. Going to community meetings, going to company meetings. A lot of times the companies will come in and want to hold a meeting and, again, greenwash, make it sound like it's going to be a good thing that's going to help with the plastic crisis. And so going to those meetings and pointing out the real impact of incinerating plastics on a community and especially schools is really important. I went to a meeting. I can think of one meeting I went to where there was a school very close to the proposed site, and I simply stood up and pointed that out and explained the health impacts and how children are particularly vulnerable. And after I did that, this was early on when the company had just, come into the community. After I did that, people's eyes lit up and other people stood up and said similar concerns, realizing, wow, this could really be a dangerous thing for us. Beyond the air pollution, the facilities have other dangers as far as them being explosive. Again, it's a fossil fuel. You're incinerating it. There's a lot of dangers inherent in that. A lot of fires, plastic burns very easily. So those are also things to point out. I would also just say, there's lots of ways for community members to get together. You can host online meetings for those people who can't come out or are less likely to come out in person. You can have webinars to provide education. Moms Clean Air Force has a great fact sheet. I have gone in and just set up, tabling at community events and shared that fact sheet. It's really helpful. It's on our website. And then also something that I have enjoyed doing is interviewing community members to get their perspective and share their stories. I've written some articles, some that stand out are community member where they were faced with a potential advanced recycling facility. And this was in an area that had had a lot of legacy pollution. And he could remember as a kid the air pollution and just being in clouds of smoke. And he didn't want that back. He didn't want that for his community. Another community member in a different place talked about seeing across from the proposed site kids out playing on their bicycles and being worried about what this would mean for their health if this facility went in there. So it's important to use a variety of ways to get the facts out and then also people's real concerns to make it all relatable and meaningful.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that and connecting with the public the way you did. And of course, nobody wants these facilities in their backyard, especially in proximity to schools or where children are playing and that kind of thing. And moving in that same direction, and thinking about communities that have already faced these proposals, what lessons kind of stand out, and what should moms and local leaders be paying close attention to? Um, Rachel, do you want to take that?
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about, I think I said that I enjoyed speaking with some of the local community members. Um, Obviously, this is not something that any of us enjoy having to deal with, but the good thing is that, once people do get their concerns out there, as I've mentioned, there's been a lot of situations, and both of the ones that I mentioned where I mentioned the community members' concerns, have ended up in the company deciding not to put the facility there because there's just been so much public opposition. So, there's been different tactics that have been helpful. As I mentioned, looking at the location, what is it near? There's another facility I can think of that is across from the proposed site is across from a high school. There is a public library there. There's an elementary school down the road. So obviously, that's going to raise the concerns of the community. And if there's a waterway nearby, there's another facility where there's the West Branch of the Susquehanna, and it was really important to the community that that was not polluted by the facility. So, just looking at the location, another area was in a valley where the pollution, when we mapped it out, the pollution would not really be dispersing from that area, and it would impact the people living there, really, concentrating in that area, causing a lot of danger for them. Slowing down the process. So that has been done in some different ways. There may be some ordinances locally that the facility would violate. So that's worth looking at to see if that can be a way to slow down their progress, to give the community time to organize. There's also actually been moratoriums, like Youngstown, Ohio had a moratorium. Actually, for 3 years now, they've had a moratorium against these facilities because they wanted to find out more before allowing it to come into their community. And as I mentioned, showing that opposition to the company to make it not a favorable place for them to be. And there's so many ways to do that. You don't have to be an expert or professional organizer. So there's different ways you can help that. Putting out yard signs. You can write LTEs. If you're a person who is comfortable getting up and speaking, definitely going to your local meetings, speaking in front of city council, in front of your supervisors, talking with those elected officials. And actually just on that topic, I'll mention 2 different communities, people did that. And the community ended up having a resolution against those facilities coming in that really helped, of course, to keep them away. So yeah, everyone has a way that they can contribute.
I think you're right. And definitely there's just a bunch of opportunities. And it's just finding out, I think, sometimes too, where these facilities are being proposed and that type of thing. I know for myself that I follow our local community page to see when we have meetings, looking up to see what is being brought up in our local ordinances or what is being proposed. And a lot of these times you can find these resources on Facebook. And then once again, as Rachel and Amanda both had mentioned, we have a ton of fact sheets on our website. And you can reach out to any one of us if you're looking for any additional details.